Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now, concussion, the chairman of concussion got to beat the heavyweight former champion Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, right? And this guy with that KO percentage and everything, and knockout highlight reel KOs, being outweighed most of the time by 20 pounds. So this is one of the best knockouters in the history of the sport. I think most people will agree on that, and people are going to agree even more, when he's retired and 10 years down the line and stuff, when people start getting nostalgic. And, because a lot of people don't realize things while they're living it. But when you want to tell the next generation why they talking about somebody new, then you start coming back with people like Deontay Wilder. Boy, y'all ain't seen no knockouts. Back in the day, it was a little skinny dude named, and that's what's going to happen. But it won't happen while it didn't happen while he was fighting. Now, Deontay Wilder is in the news a little bit, and I'll tell you why. One reporter, World Boxing News, right, article, and I'm surprised, saying probably the biggest fight, heavyweight fight in 2022 will be Oleksandr Usyk versus Deontay Wilder. Unification bout, 3-belt bout, right? And they might have a point here. Now check it out now. Now, Oleksandr Usyk is slated to fight Anthony Joshua in the rematch, right? Oleksandr Usyk is a slight favorite here. I'm hearing he's a heavy favorite, but it ain't no damn heavy favorite against heavy as Anthony Joshua. I think when fight time comes, he's going to be a slight favorite. He's going to be fighting in England too, which normally would favor the home fighter, but not when you're fighting legend Oleksandr Usyk. But I'm still thinking because of Usyk's size, it's going to be a slight favorite. I think people are realizing though that Usyk is the truth. I think now as people understand that. But having said that, Joshua's the bigger guy, so he's going to be in the mix. But if Usyk wins that fight, right, you would think the undisputed fight between him and Tyson Fury would probably be the biggest heavyweight fight. But Tyson Fury is going through this problem with Dillian White. They're supposed to be fighting, and it would have happened, but Dillian White doesn't like the 80-20 split that he's supposed to be getting as being the WBC mandatory, even though the WBC has said this is what the split should be, right, considering everything. So, but Dillian White's going to have people in court. He's got some arbitration going on right now, and so therefore Tyson Fury can't have that fight soon with Dillian White, which would mean Tyson Fury is going to take another opponent in or around the time that Anthony Joshua rematches Usyk, right? So then Usyk would have to wait because Tyson Fury, if he came through whoever that next fight would be, which I'm pretty sure he will, then he would have to fight Dillian White later in the year. So that would leave Usyk waiting on an opponent, and here's where it gets tricky, and I think it's a good point. The highest profile fight, pay-per-view fight, would be Oleksandr Usyk versus Deontay Wilder stateside somewhere. Usyk don't care where it's at. Stateside somewhere, pay-per-view, big time. And I think that's provided Wilder took an interim fight, which I wouldn't care about. I'd rather Wilder, being honest, just sit out for a while and heal, because I'm having issues. I'm thinking that Wilder's punch resistance might never be the same again, and not because of the third fight with Tyson Fury, but the second. He was too punch drunk looking in the third fight. He was too tired early, and I just think a dent in your head could probably cause something like that. That's just me being real. Everybody know I roll with Deontay Wilder. It's a legend to me, like a big legacy. But I think that I would have rather Wilder, similar to Roy Jones Jr. after beating John Ruiz. He don't have to fight no more, Roy Jones, at that point for me. Right? He didn't, unless it would be heavyweight against the smaller heavyweights. Now, Roy Jones was never going to be no Lennox Lewis or nothing like that, or Riddick Bowe, them big ones. But, Lennox Lewis would have gave Mike Tyson a little run for his money, a little bit until Tyson caught him, if he would have. Or like Evander Holyfield, that kind of stuff. Even though it's hard fights, and Roy Jones probably wouldn't have won or whatever, but good fights, but someone closer to his size, Roy should have done that instead of trying to go way back down to light heavyweight or campaign at cruiser. With my boy Deontay Wilder, man, the guy is always fighting these bigger guys, or heavier guys at least. And coming back with the issue with punch resistance might not be a good idea, you know. And I think, you know, he really had to heal from that second fight. And like I said, I would rather have seen an investigation, but whatever. So, but if Deontay Wilder does decide to fight, then you know, him and Usyk would be a good fight, be a great fight. It would be a lucrative fight, and it would be a fight between two guys around the same range, same size. Usyk would be a favorite at that fight for sure, because at that point, Oleksandr Usyk would have beaten Anthony Joshua twice at his hometown, and then he would be traveling to beat Deontay Wilder somewhere close to him. Knowing Usyk, he'd probably fight Deontay Wilder in Alabama. All right, this is Usyk we talk about. You know, that'd be a huge fight, but I'm sure they'd put it in Vegas or something. But I'm just saying, theoretically, hypothetically, my man Usyk would even go to Alabama. This kind of dude he is. So that would be a big fight. I think that's a very interesting concept or whatever, because of the things that are going on with Tyson Fury. I think the absolute biggest fight is always undisputed for me personally. I just liked, you know, one belt, because that takes everything. That's the biggest thing in any division, is just simply undisputed. We got one champion, and people don't realize that with all these champions and all that stuff, hey, even if we have an undisputed, that doesn't make any slight to the guys that are number 2, number 3, number 4. We love them too, because they're all awesome, but we just simply want to know who the best one is. Then we can start hating on the best one and hoping that our number 6 dude that nobody's paying attention to gets to fight the best one. You know, it doesn't matter, but we would have just one. And I think boxing just likes you to have 4 and 5, and we can argue about who might be the best, and they never can fight. So that's why when I see undisputed, then I'm like, I'm for that. Totally. And that's where most of the motivation comes from. Just seeing one of the best guys in every division. So, yeah, I think WBN might have a point here. I think the biggest heavyweight fight might be Deontay Wilder versus Oleksandr Usyk, or at that point, Oleksandr Usyk versus Deontay Wilder. Unification fight, pay-per-view. If things can continue to go like they are with Dillian White and Tyson Fury going through it, and then your boy Oleksandr Usyk having to face Anthony Joshua, which they should have been able to go to the undisputed fight. Anthony Joshua should not have had a rematch clause. But hey, this is the world we live in with those contracts. Those A-sides get to put crazy stuff in contracts, and then we got stuff in the, you know, everything gets backlogged, and we got to wait on undisputed. But it is what it is. Usyk versus Joshua. If Usyk comes out of that fight, then you know, we might have that fight. I don't think if Joshua wins it, he ain't fighting Deontay Wilder, probably never. But Usyk would. And Usyk versus Deontay Wilder is a fight I think everybody would want to see. What you think? Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm about to hear y'all.